Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Thought Leaders. I'm your host, Chris Shang. Today we've got Courtney Kehl, who is CEO and founder of Expert Marketing Advisors. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me, Chris. I appreciate it. It's been fun watching Leader Pro take off over the last couple of years as well. So thanks for rolling me in.
Yeah, of course, man. So tell us a little bit about what Expert Marketing Advisors is. What kind of companies do you guys work with?
Yeah, sure. And it's really straightforward. We're end-to-end marketing for B2B tech companies. We work with companies of all sizes, stealth all the way through to enterprise. We help launch people. We help folks get over through acquisitions. We work with really big guys as well as the little guys. Really doesn't matter.
Got it. And what is it? What is like kind of like the core deliverable that you guys are working on?
Yeah, I mean each customer client is a little bit different, but it does kind of revert back to numbers. Of course, I'm a numbers person, so I'm going to say results. Some folks have us working just on web dev or design. Other folks have us working on social and demand gen or campaigns. I mean, you name it. So again, end-to-end marketing. The team is really focused on tech only and B2B. We do occasionally get a B2C person, but we will pass them off to one of our partners. Our
Got it.
partners allow us to say yes to everything.
Got it. Um, and tell me a little bit about your background. How did you end up in marketing and then demand gen specifically, and then why tech?
Sure, sure. I mean, this is we're talking about like 20 plus years ago now. Um, but so I was in the Bay Area, grew up in the Bay Area, ended up working hospitality through college and whatnot, just kind of an easy fallback. And then I mean anyone that's in the Bay Area will eventually end up talking tech. It's around you at all times. A CEO and a CFO were having a strategic session at a Marriott that I was overseeing. And by the time I dropped their check off, they had made a job offer. And that's kind of where I swung into the tech world of tech. A small startup. They grew and then they shrunk, and I was basically me and the CFO were handing out the last paychecks. But we saw the whole ride. And then fast forward into marketing, I jumped into another tech company and through a number of rifts, 2008, 2009, I ended up being the last person standing in marketing. So just kind of doing everything without any true experience or background in it. So I started with events just from the hospitality side and then rolled into the other areas of marketing. And once I got a taste for it, I just didn't stop. There's just so many different areas to it.
Yeah. What would you say is like something that surprised you around going and making that transition from hospitality to tech? And then maybe specifically around marketing, right? Because I feel like, you
Sure.
know, dating myself, I feel like I think like when I think about marketing originally, I used to think about like advertising. I used to think about like building up brands and like, um, a lot of it was the creative component of business. And that's obviously changed a lot. Even in the consumer side of things, I think they do also revert back to numbers. But what was
Right.
that kind of evolution in your learning?
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, it's sort of twofold answer there. The transitioning from hospitality into tech and marketing, the marketing part was smooth enough for me because I oversaw events, and that ties to hospitality and banquets and restaurants and such. So it really, to me, I feel like marketing 101 is with events. Now, that may have progressed into obviously social and other areas and other channels. So that part was fairly smooth. It was when I started dipping into the places like digital ads and SEO and web dev that obviously I needed to lean in a bit more and get more education experience. The back then, and I hate to say it this way, but back then there was a little bit more fluff. We didn't have the tools that we do now for accountability and for tracking and for true ROI, which is kind of where I sunk my teeth in. That's where the demand gen comes from.
Got it.
Mhm.
Um, and might as well dive into it. But I guess like, we've noticed a lot of changes in the past, I guess like couple of years and maybe since you started the business as well, now going on almost 8 years. But what's been some of the evolutions, the cycles that you've seen? What are some of the stuff that has stuck around? And then what are some things that, just never made it, that was always like, buzzing and
Sure.
it hasn't really impacted the industry at all?
Yeah, no, I mean, each year there is sort of something that we see as like a trend where folks start sinking their teeth in, and we'll see it across not just one customer, but across everybody. It is a unique point of view because I kind of say we get to see the wave before it hits the shore, because what's happening with one company is likely happening with others, and that may be pulling budgets back and they might be missing their number. So for example, I think it was about 2 years ago, the beginning of the year, it became pretty obvious that a lot of people were not going to make their KPIs as far as direct sales. And so people are like, well, how are we going to make up for this? Do we adjust everything? Do we pull back? What do we do? And it's a little bit of everything, but all of a sudden partner and channel pipeline became
Mm,
something people really said, okay, well, we'll have them make up for the missed number on the direct sales. In my opinion, channel and partner pipeline has always been there. It just kind of took a front seat
yeah.
in example. Yeah, stuff like that. Things that have missed. Things that have missed Twitter or X, as we would say. I mean, but we've all pivoted, of course, and then you've got your audience across like Reddit or the other, Discord, other places, depending on your industry. Um, Social media to me is not for the faint of heart. 10 years ago, your niece or son could spin up social media. Now it requires everything from creative to, keywords, analytics to knowing like the actual industry itself and tagging people, and there's a lot more to it to really get results on the social side. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Uh, Very cool. And do you feel, is there a certain like area of expertise that you guys center on in terms like, this is like a channel that we feel is kind of like we know it super fluently versus others?
I mean, so again, we're a team of experts,
Yeah.
uh, and we have people that are actually former bosses of mine, CMOs that have hired us, have then flipped over and started working for us. So they'll often wear the strategy hat. And the experts are people that are in HubSpot every single day, day in and day out, build it from nothing to something, do house cleaning, all the above. Same with Salesforce. I mean, everybody needs a Salesforce admin, but when you're small, you don't need a full-time Salesforce admin. So it really depends. I mean, it's always fun watching folks meet some of these experts for the first time because their eyes get real big. Like, oh, like I didn't look at all that can be done in like such a short amount of time, and things just kind of become a bit more right-sized. So I know that's not really answering the question, but it really depends on who you're working with. We of course align people with our top team and make sure that we
Yeah.
can move the needle for them and just
Got it.
keep doing temperature checks. Have
Got
the
it.
expectations changed? Mhm.
Has there been any like, has there been any hires around specific categories or teams that have grown? I guess like in the past years, if that's kind of like more indicative of maybe what's been
Yeah.
trending.
Well, a year ago, a year that last summer, content creation was huge.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, we use partners, we utilize partners. So we've got our team in-house, but we also, when there's overflow or when we've got sort of a obscure request, we can certainly put it out into our network and of course always lean in together. Um, yeah, so a year and a half ago, it was all around content creation. I think with the evolution of everybody using AI and such, now it's more of, okay, how best to use AI, make sure that still it doesn't come off like a robot, so to speak, and give that human touch. Um, but yeah, it goes in waves. Social again at the beginning of this year was pretty heavy. Um, and I think right now there's a fair amount of work being done around the CRMs and HubSpot in particular. I think HubSpot is kind of coming for Salesforce's lunch, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Interesting. Um, I was having this conversation with another guest, but around kind of like, CEOs of B2B still somewhat like early stage in the sense that we're talking about like under 50 million in ARR, like
Hmm.
becoming influencers and using that as a way to kind of like drive significant amount of their sales pipeline.
Sure.
Uh, is that something that you've noticed? And then is that something that you advise or coach any of
Hmm.
your companies that you guys work with?
Yep.
Um, I know from a performance, like I was speaking to somebody who specifically focuses on performance advertising across LinkedIn. And
Mhm.
he's just saying that, having that as an asset is a tremendous help for them to actually scale up
Yep.
LinkedIn as a channel. So just curious if that's something you've noticed as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. We absolutely encourage it. And not just with the CEOs, but the folks that are, the product leaders or the security folks, anybody that's really sort of has a footprint in the industry. And if they don't have a footprint, we encourage lean in, don't be shy. Um, what I kind of referred to that earlier pipeline coming from the execs and the founder, I refer to it as a friends and family network.
Hmm.
Uh, because any one of us can pick up the phone or, send a text out and get on, a call like this or a podcast like this. I think I'm pretty much doing a podcast every week right now. Seems to be a pretty hot area for folks to kind of, lean in. But regardless, that's the friends and family network. Eventually, that's the beyond the 50 million or even beyond the 10 million or 20 million, depending on your ASP, you're going to need actual real leads that are
Yeah.
not from your Rolodex. That being said, of course, we do look for our sales reps to already have some established ones on their own. But anyways, yeah, that's sort of my experience there. I'm seeing it's tricky. A lot of people are shy as well. They don't want to lean in. They want to focus on, where they're most comfortable. But at the end of the day, it does make a difference. Yeah,
Yeah. Interesting. Been sandboxing an idea around like leveraging voice AI for interviewing busy CEOs and then spitting out their content for them, by
sure.
plugging into their current profiles to see what their narrative looks like. So it
Yeah,
does come from their tonality. But anyways, that's
yeah, yeah.
digressing.
I mean, it's if I can't think of the last time I actually wrote something of my own.
Yeah.
Because the ghostwriter helps just at least get that
Yeah.
draft going and kickstarts it, which is something like that would be doing the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, on that note, like, is there, has there been any, I guess, like changes that you've seen? I know you mentioned that you kind of have like this behind the scenes kind of visibility around like operational efficiencies or lack thereof, and
Right.
you can kind of like get like a forecast into what the wider market might be looking like. Has there been
Right.
anything that you noticed as of late, past 6 months in terms of where you think the market's going, 6 months to a year from now?
Yeah. Just the most obvious thing, and it happens every 4 years, election year. They're afraid to, really make any sales decisions or purchasing decisions. Um, I kind of shake my head at it because regardless of who wins, the purchase has nothing to do with but some people do certainly on the marketing front, they might pull back or hold back until they see how that unfolds. It just seems to be a tradition every 4 years. People get a little hesitant with their budgets.
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Do you think that's because like they're trying to evaluate cost of capital like going forward and like that might be a implication of one party versus the next or something?
To be honest, like the reasons I've heard have to do with taxes and such, but at the same time, I
Makes
mean, we're
sense.
not talking about a huge,
Yeah.
just across the board, it just becomes a behavior that everybody just, and then as soon as we get through that first week in November, the doors will start knocking very much, in preparation for the following or the next year.
Yep.
So we kind of just have that all queued up. Yeah.
Got it. And out of all the different things that's changing around sales and marketing as it relates back to AI, and you know, we've seen a lot of like I think gadgets and gizmos and a lot of like over promising, under delivering so far.
Mhm.
Um, has there been anything that you really feel like is here to stay or stick around? I guess like what I'm trying to allude to is that I see a lot of people using it, like and a lot of marketers using it. I feel like a lot of times it's like giving a loaded gun to a toddler, and it's like you're just filling the air with a bunch of noise, and it's not directly yielding conversion to a customer, right? And it's like
Right. Right.
so I'm just curious if you've seen anything like that because I've talked to other marketers and they have their favorite tools, but then at the same time, it's also like when I asked them, has it actually turned into like revenue? It's a
Right.
different response.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. It's almost like the spray and pray scenario. Um, and we've over pivoted, from again 15, 20 years ago, we didn't have the tools. Now it's
Yeah.
like, a Disneyland of tools. And,
Yeah.
folks want to map them all together and show it. So, I mean, I do think it's important to kind of streamline
Yeah.
the support that you have, because there's a lot of overlap as well. So you get the most out of what you currently have before you start adding. But no, there's nothing in particular that stands out. I mean, whether it's, a webinar platform like, Zoom or whatever other ones back in the day, I think it was like GoToWebinar and WebEx and all those others, or whether it's a tool like Marketo or HubSpot or Salesforce, or, I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, they all kind of, again, start to do the same thing. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of how much you want to try to get out of that one specific tool or product.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I wonder like for because there are a lot of and maybe it's like more so on like the agencies and then the freelancers and contractors, but like there's a like a Clay, for example, like
Right.
there's a lot of hype around some of these tools, right? And
Sure.
I kind of I was just thinking about it now. It's like I wonder why you think that is. It's like somebody who's like a marketer that's kind of like seeing different,
Right.
MarTech
Right.
and sales enablement tools pop up and disappear. Like,
Yep.
why do you think it's hot right now? I have my own theories, but I'm curious as to what yours are.
I mean, so I think people have gotten smart about it, or they've seen the trends enough times now that they know, okay, whatever's new today is going to be old tomorrow or replaced with something else and just keep getting better. For example, our team will use we'll make suggestions of our own, or we'll use whatever the existing company already has in place. Um, but I won't actually take the time to learn whatever that is until I know that I actually am going to be using it.
Mm,
Because if I learn it today, 5 months from now, 6 months from now, it's gone through iterations and releases. And what I learned today versus 6 months from now is going to be, outdated. Um, and things like Clay, Seamless, Zoom. I mean, those also go through cycles. I think it was before Clay was Seamless, a part of it. And then of course there's, the Zoom infos and the Salesforces of the bunch that I kind of consider the mafia. They own every corner of every street. It's the trends of seeing the newcomers come in and which ones actually stick.
yeah,
Mhm.
interesting. Um, yeah, I guess like I feel like there's also just a lot of there are a lot of people who start businesses or like are involved in growing businesses that also I think maybe haven't had the
Right.
longevity in it yet, where it's like they, what I mean, so they are hopping on these things and then
Yep.
and I guess they, these companies are able to capitalize on it for a period of
Yep.
time. But like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
almost like what does it change into, right? So because at the end of the day, it's like there's nothing to you are making like collecting data easier. You are, allowing people to, I think maybe it's a little bit more user intuitive to kind of like be able to like customize things now through some of these tools, but
Right.
like customize your audience, right? But then it's like you're also just lending to the problem of like over bombardment and like just
Right. Right.
numbing out
Noise.
numbing out the audience to
Mhm.
almost like this attention scarcity where almost like we've gone also as like the end users on the other side of the things, like we just are overly dismissive now.
Right. Oh, 100%. I mean, first thing I do in the morning is just like delete, 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 archive,
Yeah.
archive. And through all the different channels. It doesn't matter whether you're, emailing or texting, whatever it might be. No, I agree. We've gone too far. How we course correct that, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
It would be nice if we did all kind of take a breath. Um, but yeah, everybody's trying to get their hand on something. I have noticed actually in the last 5 years, maybe a little more, that there's a lot more VCs and a lot more folks, like tier two, tier three, whatever, the smaller investment firms that are just popping up everywhere, as opposed to, back in the day it was just kind of like the big three, like the Sequoias,
Yeah.
the Beats, and so on. Um, now I think it's folks that just, they may have cashed out and they had some acquisition or IPO of their own. And then, now they've flipped into the investor and advisor role.
Mm,
Always interesting to watch. So
yeah, yeah, for sure.
M&A, I'm a big believer in M&A as far as solving business problems and, fast tracking revenue
Yep,
and top line.
yep, got it. Um, Interesting. Uh, what's kind of the things that are what's keeping you personally interested in this space, right? Like, I feel like when you've been doing it for as long as you have, I mean, as long as I've been involved in growth marketing, like,
Right,
you have there's something that's appealing to like kind of like your intrinsic curiosity somehow.
right.
What is that for you?
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs we fall into this category of, we get bored with something. It's like the shiny object syndrome. Like we learn something and we want to move. Okay, when we've got that conquered, now what? And move on to the next thing. Um, and so, starting expert marketing advisors 7 years ago, it's very much you don't know what you don't know. And that first year is very, you're
Mm,
jumping through that you didn't even know you would be jumping through or existed. And then, as that sort of levels off, you start like really growing and stabilizing the company. And now what really keeps me interested, it's twofold. With AI really, sinking its teeth into everywhere. I find that just like really exciting. It's almost like, the days of when the internet first came out, like if you're just impacting everything and it has so much further to go. So that alone is definitely keeping my interest. And then it went from, the marketing side of things to now the mergers and the acquisitions and growing the team and just increasing your footprint. So and kind of conquering that, and then of course setting yourself up for exit. So the 10-year plan of actually selling down the road, getting equity distributed.
got it.
So this is
Uh,
always kind of as you learn through the different stages of companies, you actually
yep,
become one yourself. Mhm.
yep, for sure. As we're kind of round up on time, like, what is final question here is kind of like, what is where are you hoping to be? I know you alluded to kind of just like an exit here. It's next 10 years or something like that. But like outside of that, is there, given our mortality and the finite existence we have here, like what are you hoping to accomplish personally, professionally? Maybe it's a combination of both, here in
Right.
like the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important for anybody, that wants to sort of, have goals and whatnot. Like, think about where you want to be 5 years from now or 10 years from now. Get some really mold that really, really hard numbers. Again, I'm a numbers person, and then work backwards from that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, I have a very clear path, and then just keep refining it. And in fact, I think we might even hit those targets sooner because the multiples are changing in the industry and the market. But we'll see. You can again, it just goes back to seeing what's happening with one person. It tends to happen across the board with others, and there's sort of a change in the tide, and you can see that coming. But yeah, no, I think for me personally and professionally, it is probably, an early retirement. Retire right about 50, in about five, like, before 50. A lot of folks like yourself do, they hand off their company acquisition or IPO, and they've got the sort of the golden handcuffs, so to speak, for a year, 2 years, whatever it might be. And afterwards, they're like, now what do I do? And they become advisors. I
Yeah.
watch them, jump on things like this and, sort of take ad hoc, jobs that they consulting that they handpick. Although I do have one in particular that I thought was really fun. They became a professor and has been
Mm,
teaching
that's cool.
courses for grad school students that are entrepreneurs and marketers.
Very
Uh,
cool.
yeah, which I thought was just a little bit different than the usual. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
the folks that just get back into it and start up again.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great to be like going into education as a former operator is, I think, much
Yeah,
is very useful, right?
100%. Because we've been
Cool.
there, done that. Yeah.
Exactly. As opposed to theorizing.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yes, I think that's for me, both professionally and personally, is probably kind of just being semi-retired and sort of easing into that lifestyle.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
On that note, I want to say thank you so much for taking your time today and sharing your journey. And best of luck with everything Expert Marketing Advisors. Seems like yours are in a great place. Continue to grow. and just wish you nothing but the best and the most success.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Of course, thank you.
Cheers.